Hello and welcome to On the Right Track, Career Stories, a video series and podcast about real people, their real careers, and real lives. I'm Jane Christopher, your host, and today I'm talking to Jenny Day. She's a registered physiotherapist and the team therapist for the Canadian Para-Alpine ski team. Let's listen to some of her stories. What do you do for a living, Jenny?
So I am a physiotherapist based in North Vancouver, BC. I sort of specialize in orthopedic, musculoskeletal, and sports physiotherapy. And I have been doing this for about 6.5 years, and I love it.
Good for you. Now, how did you find your way? How did you choose this direction for your life?
How did I come to be where I am? I started out in sort of my university career thinking I was going to be a marine biologist. I loved science in high school, and I kind of always grew up loving animals, and so I threw around a couple different things, and I ended up studying biology at Acadia University. And as I finished first and second year, I started realizing that my interest in the science was more human related, as opposed to learning about cell biology and photosynthesis and plants and microscopes. That wasn't really for me. So I started migrating into the kinesiology department, and I ended up, I ended up doing a double major in biology and kinesiology because I didn't really want to let go of my biology sort of passions. I still had a big passion for ecology and conservation biology. I still really loved kind of the hard science of it. And I just decided to work really hard in my undergrad. And so by being in the kinesiology program, that's sort of how I got into kind of working with people and learning about kind of human physiology and human biology. And I had been an athlete in high school. I had a couple bad ski crashes. I'd had experience with physiotherapy kind of as a teenager, but it didn't really cross my mind as a profession until I really decided that kind of medicine wasn't on the table for me. To be honest, looking back, do I wish I had written my MCAT and maybe gone into medicine? There is a part of me that says yes. When I was in my undergrad, I really struggled with courses that are required to take the MCAT, primarily organic chemistry and biochemistry. It was a struggle for me, and my marks weren't great. And I knew that I needed those courses to take the MCAT, and I decided that I wanted to enjoy my undergrad, and I didn't want to fill my undergrad with courses that were just prerequisites for something. I had a big, broad interest in philosophy and art, and I had this issue with kind of filling my undergrad with all these prerequisites. So I kind of dropped the medicine idea. And I was like, okay, well, I have enough credits that if I want to go into some sort of human medicine, there's always physiotherapy, and I don't need biochem, and I don't need all these courses. And then when I finished my undergrad, I still was really torn because I had this part of me that was really into ecology, biology, conservation biology. But I also really enjoyed human kinetics and human physiology. I wasn't ready to make a decision after high school, and then I finished my undergrad and I still wasn't ready to make a decision. Okay. So I took a couple years off and I did some really cool things, and then eventually found my way to physiotherapy.
Okay, and so what was involved in getting into that?
So one thing that I did that I think is a really good idea, and I was fortunate in the sense that I could afford to do this, but I just applied for physio right out of my undergrad. I knew that I didn't want to go, but I wanted to see if I could get in, and I wanted to see where I could get in. Mm-hmm. And that obviously comes with being able, I don't remember how much it is, but it's like $200 a school or something. Like it costs money to apply. So, but I applied right out of undergrad. I wanted to see where I could get in, and I wanted experience with the interview process. So I applied right away. I got into a couple schools, but I asked for a deferral and most of them said no. And I said, okay, it's fine. I'm taking my year to travel. And then I ended up working for the International Olympic Committee, and I was sent to Zambia, which is in Southern Africa. And this was because I had a degree in kinesiology, and I had done an honors thesis in my undergrad. So I had research experience and I had grant writing experience. So I worked for 2 years in the high performance sport world. And I realized that I couldn't sit at a desk. I couldn't stare at a computer I loved sport. I loved working in that sort of field, but I missed the science. I missed the medicine. I missed the research. I missed all of that. And I hated sitting at a desk.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was when I was like, okay, like I want to find a job that allows me to travel, and that allows me to stay in high performance sport, but I can't do it from behind a desk. And so I ended up applying a second time, but my job in Zambia got extended. So I actually deferred a second time. So then my third time around applying, I had been accepted to pretty much every school that I applied to for my first 2 times. So my third time applying, which is finally the time that I wanted to go, I was like, this is great. My resume is amazing. I've just worked all over the world. I've been to the Commonwealth Games. I have all this experience. I've got into all these schools. And so, sorry, the first 2 times I was applying, the only school I didn't get into is Queen's. And I was like, that's okay. Like, I'm from Toronto. 50% of my Havergal class went to Queen's. I don't really want to go. I was always a bit of a like break the mold kind of girl. I was like, I don't want to go to Queen's. I know it's a good school, but everybody goes there. Mm-hmm. I want to go to U of A or I want to go to UBC. And I got in there the first 2 times. And then this third time around, I didn't get in anywhere except Queen's.
That was not funny.
So I ended up going to Queen's for physio. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is strong values around work values and life values. You value adventure, travel, sport. You don't want to work behind a desk. So when I'm talking to my students, I really want to emphasize with them the importance of figuring out what matters to you. Talk to us a little bit more about how your values played into your decision-making for your career.
I think for me, it was more about exploring and learning about what I didn't like, rather than trying to figure out what I did like and what I did want to do. One of my favorite sayings is, I know what I know and I know what I don't know, but I don't know what I don't know. So I think when I was in high school and when I was in my undergrad, you slowly start to learn the things that you either don't enjoy, and you start to learn the things that you do value and that you do enjoy. But I think the way that I came to doing what I do now was like, it's not a trial and error in the sense of like, I tried accounting. Like it was a balance between knowing my skills and also like not being afraid to try things and knowing that it was okay to change my mind. I started out as a biology student staring in through microscopes, and my honors thesis in my undergrad was working with children with disabilities, like in the kinesiology department. So I've never been afraid of changing my mind. I don't think that not finishing something is the equivalent of failure. I've never been afraid of taking opportunities. So that didn't really answer your question, but
it's a great message nonetheless for the viewers today. So when you were in high school, you said that you were interested in the sciences for your undergraduate. How did you know that you wanted to do sciences? So many kids, when they're choosing high school courses, they really struggle with direction. They don't know whether they should drop science, keep it up. Those are hard programs to stay in if you're not going to end up using them. Tell us about your interests when you were a teenager.
I think I was, and I'm still like this, like in high school, I was a rower. Like I loved sports, but I was also a bit of a like biology, chemistry nerd. Physics wasn't my favorite, but I didn't hate it. But I also loved art. Like I took art, I think until grade 11. I did take it in grade 12, but it was something that I really enjoyed, even from a young, like even from grade 9, grade 10, like I really I've always sort of taken courses that I think will stimulate me. There was an element of, you do have to have a little bit of foresight in high school. You have to know, do I want to do something in the sciencey realm? Like, is that even a possibility? Because you do have to look at the prereqs for the courses. There's this balance between not wanting to like slam a door,
Yeah.
versus making sure that you take things that are interesting to you. And
That's a good message. And you were very active as an athlete in high school.
yeah,
Okay, I want to go back to your career life. Tell us about what your work looks like today.
I work for myself, but I also work, so I work for myself at a couple different clinics. Right now in this job in Vancouver, I work about 35 hours a week, and that's considered full time. And so that's on average, 6 to 7 hours in a day. And it's 6 to 7 hours full. Like, I will sometimes, when you're in my profession or medicine, or if you're a psychiatrist or a psychologist, I'll sometimes go 6 hours without checking my phone. It's one of these things where, because I can't be treating a patient and, be texting on my phone. So it's one of these jobs where if it's a busy day and I'm fully booked, I sometimes work straight. If I have like 30 seconds to shove a snack down my mouth, then great. But then once I'm done, I'm done. I leave my work, and sometimes I have a little bit of paperwork and charting and that sort of stuff, but
what are the physical demands like? Are you exhausted?
Sorry?
Are you exhausted? Is it physically demanding for you?
It's very physically demanding. And one thing I will say, I'm just going to plug the profession of physiotherapy here for, I am an orthopedic sports physiotherapist, but the majority of physiotherapists in the country do not do what I do.
Okay.
So physiotherapy is a very, very broad profession. And so one of the misconceptions that people have when they say, I want to be a physio, is they see people like me who are in high performance sport. And they go, I want to be the physio for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what I hear all the time from boys.
And I don't want to be a bubble buster, but those jobs are extremely rare. Mm-hmm. They almost always come to people who have the connections rather than the people who worked hard for them. That's the honest truth. Like, hard work gets you places, but in professional sport, in high performance sport, that is rare that it comes to the people who work hard.
Okay, you are in high performance sport.
Yeah. So, sorry, I guess I shouldn't say it's rare for those who work hard. There's an element of connection and there's an element of luck that needs to happen. So I happened to be a ski racer. I skied at Devil's Glen. So I have a skill set, and it just so happened that I was working with another physio who had skied on the Canadian ski team, and the physio for the women, the Canadian national ski team, had got a concussion. And they kind of said to me, we need a physio to come down to Chile, and we need you for 3 months straight. And so it was just this combination of right place, right time, and I happened to know how to ski. So it was a combination of right place, right time, knowing the sport. When it comes to, so physiotherapy is still now predominantly women. My class at Queen's had the most number of males ever, and it was 30%. So physio is like the reason I just say this is because a lot of high school students think that physiotherapy equals working with sports teams and getting all the fame and really cool like perks. But that's like, as a sports and orthopedic physiotherapist, the majority of the people that I work with are people like you, people like my mom and dad, the people who ski in Collingwood, the soccer player that sprains his ankle. So it's something to strive for, and I'm really lucky that I get to do what I do.
Okay, so you work in clinics. You've
Yeah.
got full-time hours in Vancouver, and then
Mhm.
you also work for a Canadian ski team. And so
Yeah.
that obviously takes you away from the clinic from time to time. You just book those hours and so on. How do you fit in your life, your personal life, with your busy schedule?
Like I said, my clinic hours are 30 to, actually I think it's 32 hours a week, which is really not a lot. It's on average between 5 and 7 hours in a day. And
That's
because it's,
hands-on though. That's hands-on.
sorry,
It's hands-on though, Jenny. It's very demanding, in my opinion.
it is demanding. It is. And it's also emotionally demanding as
Yeah,
well, because
I can imagine.
people will, confide in you. And I'm not a doctor, but I do also, like, we practice patient practitioner confidentiality. So when people tell me things, I can't just go and blab it to my friends. So it's emotionally demanding, it's physically demanding. But because I work weird hours, like I'll work 7 in the morning till 1.
Mhm.
And so I finish at 1 p.m. and then I have the whole day. So if I need to go home and eat my lunch and chill for an hour, then it's still only 3 o'clock and I have the whole afternoon.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. And so it's definitely, it allows for,
And can you choose your hours? Would you be able to book them in the evenings, weekends to adjust to
yeah,
preferences? Okay. So you're
yeah,
your own boss and you're making the call for how you want to set up your
yeah,
clinic.
yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so let's see. What's something you weren't expecting about your career or the work that you do?
From the perception of a sports physiotherapist, I definitely thought that aspect of it would be easier. I thought, if I just kind of, like, this is the avenue that I want to work in. Um, the concept of healthcare and public health, and how the majority of the public's health needs are kind of in that sector. And so private physiotherapy um, is definitely something that I took for granted. I had two parents who worked and had insurance and had benefits, and I kind of just was like, oh, everyone gets physiotherapy. And then you don't enter the job that I'm in if you don't want to help people. Like,
Mhm.
that's essentially why I chose physio, as opposed to, like, I could have gone on to do my PhD and gone the research route. But I wanted to help people and I wanted to work in the field of medicine, whether that was as a doctor or not. You don't go into physio if you want to make millions of dollars, and you do it because you want to help people. And so learning that not everybody has access to what I provide has been hard. Like, I have this skill set. So that was just one thing that I found interesting.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. Okay, one thing I just want to circle back to, you had said that with the whole sports teams working in that community, as a professional, it's really hard to get in. You need a connection. I'm going to call you out a little bit. You did have a connection because you had a connection. That's how you got in, because of your skiing
Yeah.
at one, correct?
Yeah.
So what I want to just highlight for the kids who are listening is that you were doing your own networking as a young
Yeah.
person at your skate club, and anyone can network as a young person in any area of their life. And that's how you open up possibilities. It's the people you know and asking them for what you want and need when an opportunity arises. So,
Yeah.
just to say, you were considering it something that was rare, but it's something you accomplished. And I think anybody can, with the right, you know, sort of risk-taking spark.
Yeah.
Go for it for sure. Okay,
Yeah.
couple more questions and then I'll let you go, Jenny. Thanks so much for sharing so far. What would you tell your younger self? I know you're very young compared to many people that I interviewed for the series, but you're early in your career. What would you tell yourself that you wish you'd known?
I would have told my high school self to take a deep breath and chill. Obviously, your high school experience is important, and shapes who you are. And you need to get good grades if you want to get into a good school. In terms of the content and what I learned in high school, I don't remember any of that stuff. Like, it's so getting the marks to get into schools are important, but the amount of stress that is placed on that sort of thing, I think, is misplaced. The other thing that I would say is that it doesn't really matter where you end up going to school, because you'll love it regardless. So if someone had said to me, just go to a school that feels right for you, which is what I did. Like, I went to middle of nowhere, Nova Scotia. And yeah, that's kind of my biggest advice is just to enjoy the ride.
Okay, and what do you think the most important skill is for young people entering the real world? What do you think you need to make it?
To make it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I can really answer that question. I think that that's putting too much pressure on like one thing.
Right?
I think
That's a great answer.
yeah, I think authenticity is really important. I think doing things that you enjoy is really important. And then I also think not knowing what you want is fine. I make a really conscious effort when I treat high school students and undergrad students, especially high school students, to not ask, what are you going to do when you finish high school? It's the question that made me want to punch a wall.
Yeah, it's scary.
Punch
It's
the
really
wall.
scary. They don't know where,
Yeah.
so many of them are overwhelmed by not knowing,
Yeah. And I
not
think
having a direction.
it's a really personal decision. It's,
Okay, so with
and
that, Jenny, I'm going to ask you, where
yeah,
do you see yourself in 5 years?
where do I see myself in
Sorry that
5
I'm
years?
asking the question you avoid asking.
Yeah. I, I see myself continuing in this practice. Physio is a cool profession because you're always learning. Like, I'm always taking new courses and learning new things. So I might be in a different subset of physio, but I'll probably be along the same path.
Okay. And so my last question is, if you weren't doing what you're doing, totally different direction, career-wise, what would it be?
Well, if I think back to the major kind of fork in my life, I probably would be like an academic PhD in some sort of biology. I kind of had this avenue where I had an undergraduate degree, and I had applied to some programs at the University of Cape Town in South Africa, and I had applied to physio, and I ended up choosing physio. So if I wasn't doing this, I'd be like researching dolphins on a boat somewhere. I don't know.
That sounds amazing too. Okay, well, Jenny, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights and tips for kids and young adults. It's, I'm sure, very valuable scoop for all of them. That ends this episode of On the Right Track Career Stories. See you later. Thank you so much for joining us. If you liked the video, give us a like, and even better, subscribe. For more information, check out the links below. You'll get lots of scoop about other social media platforms, more information about our interview guests, and the services available from Right Track Education. Have a great day and best wishes to everyone.